Good morning, YouTube friends and family, and welcome to episode 3 in our preparation for canning season series. So I realized I did part 1 and part 2 on the same day, and I've been working at trying to do videos ahead of time and to get ahead. I had asked in video 2 for you all to drop your questions, or if there's topics you would like me to cover, that I would cover it in part 3. Well, then I realized because I was so far out that by the time part 2 aired, I would already have part 3 done. So here's what I'm going to do. I still want all of your questions, all of your topics you would like me to cover, and just drop me a comment below. And I will do a frequently asked questions about canning video if there is interest. You know, I know a lot of you are really expert canners. You really don't need my input or advice. So let's just see. So I'm finally doing what I had suggested be done in part 1 and 2, and that is I have a bucket full of warm water and of course my ever faithful Pen Allen. This time I'm using the lavender scent, and it's not unpleasant, but it's not as good as the floral. It's not really so much lavender. I get more of a pine sol feel from it, but yeah, it works great. I have no problems with it. So I'm a little embarrassed, guys, but I'm going to show you. So over here on my table, I have my inventory sheet and many, many jars. So you may be wondering, like, okay, if you clean your jars after they've set for 24 hours, you remove the ring and you're cleaning them, labeling them, etc. Why are you cleaning them again? So I'm really not cleaning the jars from the standpoint of I've got to get any remaining food off because, yeah, they've been cleaned every 6 months, depending on how old they are. I get so much dust, and I'm going to try to show you. See the fingerprint right there? Yeah. The cabinets I love. This will be my 3rd canning season. I've had them for 2 years. I did purchase them from Walmart.com. The last I looked, they were no longer available, but it's just on a track and it slides back and forth. I keep my house pretty dark inside because of the canned goods, so I'm not really worried about the light affecting it as much, and it's definitely temperature controlled. I could get a tension rod, you know, like one of those springy rods, and make myself like a blackout curtain for right here. But again, I haven't had any problem, and I do rotate and keep my eye on all of my canned goods. So, and you know what? Occasionally I will find a jar, unfortunately, that's come unsealed. Now that, so far, I've only done, well, 2 shelves. As I pull them out, I do the little test by holding it by the rim. So if there's any suspicion there that it isn't sealed, it will pop off. I also look at, this is apple butter. I take a look at the actual product and decide, is it looking like it shouldn't, or does it look fine? One thing I've noticed, and I am going to change, and this poor cabinet has been arranged and rearranged so many times. While it's organized, and let's say I can strawberry jam 3 times in a season. Well, I had them in order where the newest jam was in the back, the oldest jam was in the front. However, the problem that I'm running into and I'm discovering is that I had them in order by type of jam. So I'm finding jams that are at the 2-year point. And I've shared jam is one of my favorite things to actually can, and I'm not always good about eating it. I do it in large part, not only because I enjoy it, but it's great for gifting. And my mom loves my homemade jam. I mean, she eats jam every single day, and I don't. So I'm trying to kind of take a look. And I know I just made rhubarb jam recently, but this year, guys, no jam for me. Not going to do that. So I'm just using a microfiber cleaning cloth. And I wanted to ask you all, so how did Amazon Prime Day go for you? I should have told this on an earlier video, but I did not think of it. And this jar actually really has a lot of hard water deposits on it. Not sure why. And this is my yummy cherry jam. So normally what I do is if I see something that I want or I think I need, but it isn't an urgent matter, I will put it in my cart and then click save for later. So my save for later cart is always like huge. I do that not only to make sure, do I really need it, or is this just a want that I don't want to spend money on right now, or I don't want to spend money on at all? Like, which is it? So I did that with a lot of items prior to Amazon Prime Day, because one thing I have noticed in previous years of Amazon Prime, and they will deny it, is that a lot of the Amazon basics, so the things that are their brand that they recommend, they will actually raise the price and then say, save 20%, do this, do that, you know, and it's really not a savings at all. So knowing your prices going into Amazon Prime Day is important. Also, avoiding the deal of the hour or lightning deals or timed deals where this year when you put it in your cart, it would say you only had so many minutes before you could check out. Yeah, that wasn't always the case. So one of the things that I really wanted was more microfiber cleaning cloths. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I must be a real adult because I want cleaning cloths instead of, like, I don't know, new outfits or makeup or whatever. And the second thing I needed was I wanted one of those multiple configuration little giant ladders. So I had both of those items in my cart, knew how much they were. So once Amazon Prime Day started, the microfiber cleaning cloths, and they're nice. They're not the thickest, but they're not super thin. They're 12 inches square, and they have, you know, the smooth side and the rougher side. Totally great for cleaning. And while I do use paper towels for messy messes, like if Frankie gets sick, I'm not cleaning up cat vomit with microfiber cleaning cloth. I go through a lot of them when I clean, and I have different color cloths for different things, or I will take my Sharpie and write on it like upholstery or bathroom only or whatever. So at any rate, I got my microfiber cleaning cloths at a greatly reduced price. So I paid about $7 for a dozen cleaning cloths that are a little nicer than the ones that I had been buying at the dollar store. My favorite microfiber cleaning cloths I get from Grove. I haven't been purchasing from Grove because I'm very well stocked, and I also use some cleaning items that they don't stock, like the Penallen. So I did save $56 on my little giant ladder, so that was my buy of Amazon Prime Day. So drop me a comment below. What good buys did you find on Amazon Prime Day? Did you find that some of the prices look like, excuse me, they had increased them before they offered you the discount? I'm very curious to know. So one other thing that I've learned as I've been cleaning these, I've been using Penallen in hot water. Yeah, I'm washing the writing off. So I had been using a thin line Sharpie, and because I wash the jar tops at least every 6 months, it was getting fainter and fainter. Now, thankfully, I can tell, plus I just kind of know what I've canned. So I'm going to freshen the lids with the fatter Sharpie. But the other problem that I've run into, or I've discovered, is that while, let's say I made strawberry jam or blueberry jam more than one time in a season based on fruit being on sale, I had those in order where the newest was in the back, the oldest was in the front when I went to select another jar. but because I've put them in order by type of jam, jelly, or some of this is just canned fruit, I have some 2019 jam. So as I'm putting it back in, jam that I've made in 2020, 2021 will go by type of jam in the back, and I'm going to put all my 2019 jam in the front. I haven't seen anything unsealed, and you do want to take a look. You know, does it look right? Is there any discoloration or mold growing on it? And sometimes seals come undone. So far I haven't come across any, but I'm only on shelf number 2. I did dispose of, sadly, and this was my mistake, I made blueberry pie filling with the special kind of pectin, powdered pectin from Hoosier Farms, and it had sat there for 2 years. I hadn't used it, and it separated, so all the blueberries were congealed together and then the liquid separated. That's not, to me, a safe and edible product. So there wasn't a lot, but I put my 4 quarts, I disposed of those. So note to self. And I actually made that thinking I would make blueberry crisp for my mother, and at the time that I canned it was a time that my mom was not well, so I was doing a lot of cooking for her. So then I promptly forgot about it. And honestly, y'all know I'm not a good fruit eater. Blueberry is not my favorite. I love apple crisp and cherry crisp and cherry pie. So I'm going to freshen up my labels, and I'm going to keep going on cleaning and just intermittently share with you some of the things that I find and some suggestions that might be helpful for you. One of the things I am doing is I am using my home canned food inventory sheet. Again, this came from Sutton Day's Project Pantry. It's now an Etsy item, so it's a pay-for item. Guys, you can totally do this on a piece of paper. Just write home canned food inventory on the top. Because I had the sheets and I just make copies of them, I am going to use them for my inventory. And then we can kind of sit down and talk about how I will use this information to plan ahead for my 2021 canning season. So stay tuned. So we're moving along here. I've gotten through all my jams and jellies, and then carrots, sweet potatoes, and green beans. And when I am inventorying these, I'm writing what it is, how many, and the year that it was canned. I think having this available when I get ready to have a meal, I can look and say, okay, what is almost 2 years since it's been canned that I can incorporate into a meal. The other thing that I am going to do starting with 2021 is I am going to start changing the color of the Sharpie for the year. So I did a quick check. I only have thin line Sharpies and colors, but I'm sure you can buy the fat ones to write on the lid. But I wanted to share with you, I don't have a lot of ready-made meals or pre-cooked meat, shall we say, left. And I'm kind of surprised about it. I am not a big meat eater. One of you lovely subscribers suggested, that I plan for canning meat. And, with the way prices are going, guys, I totally understand where that comment came from. But I will also say, if you're not going to eat it, i.e. blueberry pie filling, don't put it up. One of the things I've really loved having, but I still have 6 quarts left, is kind of the start of a chicken base soup. So this has celery, onion, carrots, and of course this was pressure canned, and chicken breast. And I did this last July, and there were a few times through the year where I wasn't feeling very well, and I thought, wow, I'm just going to grab that. You can put noodles in it. You can add additional vegetables. You can have it just plain and simple as it is. It's canned in chicken broth. So this, once I'm way down on it, I will definitely consider pressure canning. I do try to plan for things that you can any time of the year, like chicken, soup mix, if you want to call it that. Um, some onion things you can do, like sweet onion jam. Doesn't have to be done in the peak harvest season. So these are things that I will definitely redo, but I won't do it during the rush that is harvesting time, where you need to utilize what is fresh and available. If you get a good buy on chicken, you can certainly freeze those chicken breasts, then thaw them to do your pressure canning. The other thing that I definitely will be recanning is my Sloppy Joe. When I originally did this, and I also did this at the end of July last year, I thought I have done way too much. They had a special on ground beef, so I did, and I'll show you in a minute, I did both taco meat and Sloppy Joe. Can't tell you why. Do not care for the taco meat. Will not be a repeat. I used my homemade taco mix, so I don't think it was that. It's just, I don't know, it just doesn't taste as good. So I only have 3 jars as well left of this. So this will go back into the pantry. So I've filled up a sheet with one side of the cabinet. This side of the cabinet has a lot of my dehydrated foods. Up top I do have tomatoes, but this has a lot of things like herbs and things that I use to make my soaps. There's calendula, there's lavender buds. I do have some dried apples, dried tomatoes, so I'll be going through those and getting and keeping those organized to see if there's anything that does not still look fresh and usable. So I'm going to keep working, and I will bring you back probably towards the end to show you where I landed and how I'm going to plan for my canning season. So stay tuned. So as I was starting on the other side, I did want to share one thing with you. So last year, I did make some French onion soup, and you'll see some fat has separated out. That is from the butter in it. But this is simply a very rich beef stock with onions that has been pressure canned. And what I like to do with that is use my homemade sourdough bread croutons, which I made a little label for this one. Not sure why I did that, probably because I was doing a video. And these also have sage and onion seasoning in them. So I kind of forgot I had this French onion soup. So that's another reason that it's good to do an inventory. And I think I am going to find like a clipboard or a folder so I can slide this in, well, actually up higher where the shelves are further apart, and take a peek at it when I am doing meal planning so that I am utilizing what I worked so hard to put away. And these onions, I do remember, were onions that I grew last year. So, you know, that's, oops, I've lost my cleaning cloth somewhere. Oh well, we'll find that in a moment. Oh, right here. Been a bug, it would have bit me. So, always good to do a pantry clean out. I'm thinking, because of how crowded this is, I'm either going to relocate some of my dehydrated goods to my long-term storage so that I can have all of my home canned goods here, or I'm going to have to put my newly canned home canned goods in the other room. And I think it's more logical to clear some space in here because I have lots and lots of tomatoes to take care of. So stay tuned. So before I dispose of this, I want to show you one of my epic canning fails and one of the reasons that I'm more of an ingredient canner than a meal canner. So this is sweet and sour chicken. Smells fine. I actually canned this last year. The reason for the discoloration has to do with the teriyaki that I put in there, but it has a lot of sediment in the bottom where vegetables got too soft. To me, it is just entirely not edible. So I'm going to be disposing unfortunately, of this food, and note to self, I won't be making it again. So in case you're feeling like, I made some really bad pressure canned or water bath canned food, you are not alone. So I have shared my food saver vacuum sealer in previous videos that has the bags where you can vacuum seal meat, vegetables, whatever you would like to freeze. But my particular model, which I will link in the description box, also has the ability to use the jar sealer attachments. So there is a regular mouth as well as a large mouth. So as I was going through my dry goods, I did find 3 jars that either I didn't reseal after I used the ingredients. And these are not food items. These are items that I use for making cleaning products or for making soap or bath and body products. So I have calendula, I have jasmine flowers, and I also have some lavender. So all you do is you want to take your ring off. So you just have the lid or the flat, if that's what you call it. Place the jar sealer over top, snap in the accessory, then there's an accessory button here you push, and I apologize, it's loud. Sounds like a jet engine taking off, but the pitch will change as it removes that air and gets closer to sealing the jar. I remove the little attachment first. Now, I will tell you, there is a rubber ring, a blue rubber ring inside these jar sealers that's often left on the jar. No worries, you can put it back on. And yes, 9 times out of 10, that's what happens. So you just simply snap it back in. So while it's not foolproof, it does work. And as you see, my jar is sealed, and that will keep my lavender fresher. So I'm going to continue sealing these other 2 jars, and then I'm going to get back to my pantry work. So this has ended up being a little bigger job than what I thought. But when I'm done, everything is going to be organized and I'll know exactly what I have. So stay tuned. So I apologize for the poor lighting with the light coming in here, but I wanted to show you my final organized pantry. So I have 2 complete rows, if you will, or shelves full of my jams and jellies, vegetables here. Down here I have the French onion soup, my pre-canned meats, and chicken soup base. In here, I totally forgot I had canned beef stew. So these are all tomato products. So either spaghetti sauce, pizza sauce, ketchup, oh, all things tomato. This row is also all things tomato, and I am down to 8 quarts of canned tomatoes. This is my tomato juice, and I will share. Tomato juice always separates like this, home canned. So there you go, is what it looks like. I have only 4 jars. I have one up here of salsa, so salsa's a need. I did change up how I'm storing my dehydrated items. I am only keeping food and things that I make a tea out of, like mint leaves, in these 2 rows. And I did reseal a few jars that had come unsealed, or perhaps I had forgotten to seal them in the first place. So for maximum freshness, you definitely want those sealed. Moving over to the second pantry. I have empty rows now, top and bottom, 2 empty shelves. This is a tall shelf. Here I have all sorts of condiments. So things like mustard, I have corn salsa, pickles, barbecue sauce, tomato chutney, tomato jam, which is kind of a condiment. Again, barbecue sauce, pickled beets, applesauce, banana peppers, and then over here jalapenos, and again the bottom is empty. I did move my large canisters, so they're actually taking up 1.5 shelves. This is my remaining pie pumpkin I canned. Down on the bottom, a few jars of onion broth, and then some apple pie filling. So this is kind of random, but that was the room that I had left. So just a few closing thoughts. Here are my inventory sheets for both my home canned and home dehydrated foods. I did put how many I had of each item and the expiration date, whether it was 1920 or 21. I did want to share with you, I had 4 seal failures. 2 were apple pie filling, 2 were onion broth. Now let me say about the onion broth, I think I had a subpar batch of Ball canning lids because each time I have cleaned in there, there is 1 or 2 that lose their seal. So it could have been my error in not getting the rims completely clean, but that's quite unusual. So the other thing I did with my onion broth that I don't recommend, but I want to share some information with you, is because I was very limited on space, at the end of canning season, I did stack, and I stacked pints on top of quarts, which is not as bad, in my opinion, as quarts on top of quarts. That could lead to seal failure. So I thought, I'm kind of curious, what does the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning say about stacking jars? And you know what the answer to that is? They say nothing in the book. They do talk about don't start jars above 95, near hot pipes, arrange a furnace under a sink in an uninsulated attic or in direct sunlight. Food will lose quality in a few weeks or months and may spoil. Dampness may corrode metal lids, break seals, and allow recontamination and spoilage. And they also talk about if you identify spoiled food, which, believe it or not, none of the 4 jars had spoiled food. I don't know if the seal simply broke when I tested it. I think that's what happened. But at any rate, it wasn't a secure seal if it wouldn't hold by lifting it. So it does talk about how to fully detoxify the food and be safe about it. So then I thought, well, somebody's got to have an opinion on stacking jars and what is safe and what isn't. So I wanted to share with you what Ball actually says. You may safely stack your jars on top of each other currently. No need for cardboard in between the layers. You may stack empty jars with closures on them or stack jars with preserved food in them. You can place cardboard between the layers if you like when stacking your jars. So the healthycanning.com website says, we followed up with Ball and asked them if they recommended a layer limit. This was their reply via Facebook. Cardboard is optional and we do not have a recommended limit on layers. Storing the jars in proper temperature and keeping them in a location where they won't be knocked over is important if you choose to stack. So I'm sure as I panned through, you saw I will stack pint jelly jars. I will stack half pints on top of pint jelly jars. I just don't like stacking anything heavier or larger on top because I do think it leads to seal failure. Another thing that I'm just going to put out there, I have been using the Hoosier Hill Farm Clear Gel for my pie fillings. So in full disclosure, last year was my first attempt at canning pie filling. I'm sorry, 2 years ago. I'm not impressed. Clear gel expands when you're canning. You have problems with the jars being too full because it expands when it's hot, then it contracts when it's not, and so your jars aren't full enough. So in view of the fact that I have ordered 10 pounds of cherries and I thought, oh, I'll make cherry pie filling. After looking at how my canned pie filling fared, I'm not impressed. So I am going to actually freeze my cherries. I may can some just in like a sugar water to have on the shelf for perhaps making a cherry syrup to go over ice cream. But I think the majority of my cherries I'm actually going to freeze. I think I can make a better pie than trying to can pie filling. So those are my takeaways from my cleaning session. I do have 30 pounds of tomatoes that I will be canning this week. I am going to just can them, like I'll quarter them depending on the size of tomato, perhaps somewhat smaller, because I like them in that format for soups and stews. And I also need to make some salsa, but this is only purchase one of tomatoes. And these came actually from Southern Ohio from the Mennonite auction. So I hope you've enjoyed this 3-part series. I still would love to hear from you if you have any questions. I'd be more than glad to answer them. If I need to do an FAQ video, I'd be happy to do that as well. So as always, be healthy, be well, be blessed. Get your canning organized and start planning. Take care.